Karen's voice sliced through the evening air like a chainsaw through butter, her demands echoing off my lake cabin's cedar walls. "This property's ours now, pack your junk and get out," she bellowed, her chins wobbling with every syllable, her son smirking behind her like he'd already won the deed. I stood on my porch, coffee mug in hand, staring at this human bulldozer who'd terrorized our small lake community for years. HOA Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, had a reputation for bullying neighbors into submission, finding old Mrs. Carter for her unkempt wildflower garden, harassing the Wilsons over their boat's paint color, even reporting kids for laughing too loudly at the dock. But this was a new low, even for her. She'd set her sights on my cabin, a modest retreat my grandfather built with his own hands, claiming her son, Trevor, deserved it as his summer hangout. The audacity was almost laughable, but the baseball bat in Trevor's grip made it anything but funny. It started 3 weeks ago when Karen waddled up my gravel drive, her oversized sunglasses perched like a crown, and handed me a notice on HOA letterhead. The paper, reeking of her floral perfume, declared my cabin violated some obscure bylaw about excessive rustic charm. I laughed it off. Me cabin wasn't even under the HOA's jurisdiction, a fact she refused to acknowledge. "You're a blight on our community's aesthetic," she'd snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. "Trevor needs a proper lakeside vibe for his friends. Hand it over, or we'll make you." I crumpled the notice and tossed it into my fire pit, thinking that'd be the end of it. I was wrong. Karen escalated, her son in tow like a loyal lapdog. They started showing up unannounced, measuring my porch, snapping photos, even leaving tire tracks in my wildflower patch. Trevor, a lanky 17-year-old with a permanent sneer, bragged to my neighbor Jim about taking over the old man's shack. I'm 42, hardly ancient, but to Trevor, anyone who didn't bow to his mother's whims was irrelevant. Last week, Karen filed a complaint with the county, claiming my cabin was structurally unsound. The inspector, a friend of my dad's, laughed it off after a 5-minute visit. That's when Karen's threats turned personal. "You'll regret crossing me," she hissed at the community picnic, her voice low enough to avoid witnesses. Today, though, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I'd been splitting firewood when I heard her SUV's tires crunching up my drive. She stormed out, Trevor trailing with that bat, and laid into me. "This cabin's a hazard," she shrieked, waving another fake notice. "We're taking it for Trevor's safety. Move, or we'll move you." Trevor swung the bat lazily, smacking it against his palm, his eyes daring me to react. I felt my pulse spike, not from fear but from the sheer gall of it. This was my land, my home, my grandfather's legacy. No one, not Karen, not her entitled spawn, was taking it. I set my mug down, slow and deliberate, and met her gaze. "Karen, you're trespassing. Leave now, or I'll call the sheriff." Her laugh was a grating cackle, like she'd heard the world's worst joke. "The sheriff? He's my cousin's golf buddy. Good luck." Trevor smirked wider, stepping closer, the bat now dangling by his side. That's when I noticed the gate at the end of my drive, a heavy, steel-reinforced gate, installed after last year's vandalism. I'd left it open for a delivery, but I could fix that. Without breaking eye contact, I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed Sheriff Danvers. Karen's face twitched as I spoke calmly into the receiver. "Hey, Dan, got 2 trespassers threatening me with a weapon. My property on Lakeview." "Yeah, they're still here." Her smugness faltered, but she doubled down, shouting, "You're bluffing. This is our lake now." Trevor, emboldened, kicked my mailbox, sending it toppling into the dirt. That was the last straw. I walked to the gate, my boots crunching gravel, and swung it shut with a clang that echoed like a gunshot. The lock snapped into place, a satisfying click that cut through Karen's tirade. "You're not going anywhere," I said, pocketing the key. Her eyes widened, realizing her SUV was now trapped inside my property line. Trevor raised the bat, but I pointed at the security camera above my porch. "Swing that, kid, and it's assault on tape." He froze, the bat dropping slightly. Karen's face turned beet red, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter glass. "You can't do this. I'll sue you into the ground." But her bravado was crumbling. She'd underestimated me, assuming I'd fold like the others. I wasn't Mrs. Carter, crying over her fine flowers, or the Wilsons, who'd repainted their boat to avoid her wrath. I'd grown up on this lake, learned its currents and its secrets, and I'd be damned if I let this bully and her son steal my peace. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up minutes later, lights flashing against the darkening sky. Danvers stepped out, his face a mix of amusement and exasperation. "Karen, what now?" he asked, already knowing her reputation. She launched into a tirade, claiming I'd stolen her son's rightful property. Trevor chimed in, whining about his summer plans. I stayed silent, letting my camera footage do the talking. I handed Danvers my phone, showing the clip of Trevor kicking my mailbox and waving his bat. Karen's jaw dropped as Danvers watched, his expression hardening. "Threatening with a weapon, property damage, and trespassing," he said, shaking his head. "Karen, you've outdone yourself this time." He turned to me. "You pressing charges?" I glanced at Karen, her face now pale, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. Trevor looked like a kid caught stealing cookies, the bat now limp at his side. Part of me wanted to see them both hauled off in cuffs, but I thought of my grandfather's words. Justice isn't revenge, it's balance. "I'll settle for an apology and them leaving my land," I said. Karen sputtered, but Danvers cut her off. "Apologize, Karen, or we're taking a ride to the station." Her lips trembled, but she muttered a half-hearted sorry through gritted teeth. Trevor mumbled something similar, avoiding my eyes. Danvers nodded. "Now get in your car and don't come back. I see you here again. It's cuffs." I unlocked the gate, watching as Karen's SUV peeled out, gravel flying. The silence that followed was sweeter than any victory. My cabin stood untouched, the lake shimmering beyond it, a quiet reminder of what I'd fought for. Karen's reign of terror had cracked, and word would spread. The lake community wasn't hers to rule anymore. That night, I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, the stars reflecting on the water. I thought about the neighbors she'd bullied, the peace she'd disrupted. Karma had a way of finding people like Karen, and tonight, it had found her with a locked gate and a sheriff's warning. The lake was mine again, and so was the quiet. The end.